Our favorite CNN host, Wolf Blitzer, caught a little heat today because he put out a misleading photo in regard to the pretty high gas prices. We're all experiencing it, unless we're one of the lucky few in the country that get to enjoy public transportation that actually functions decently. But for most people who need to rely on long commutes, gas prices have been killing us. And Wolf Blitzer put out this tweet. FYI, breaking news. I'm just kidding, he didn't say breaking news. FYI, gas prices today here in Washington, DC. And then he has a photo of the gas prices with regular gas at $4.29. And then you get to Supreme at $4.79. Now, he got a lot of backlash because the price of gas per gallon varies depending on the state you're in, depending on the city you're in. So if you happen to be in an area where there's high demand for gas, places that are densely populated, metropolitan areas, places like DC, for instance, it is likely that you're gonna end up paying a lot more for gas. There are other issues at play. If you're living in a state like California, there are additional taxes associated with each gallon of gas. So that's something to consider as well. So look, people were giving him a hard time about it, but considering all of the foibles we've seen from Wolf Blitzer and cable news hosts like him, I would say this is a mild offense. But I do think it's worth discussing what we're experiencing at the pump. Why are gas prices so high? Why are we experiencing inflation? You'll see them talk about it and fearmonger about it in corporate press, but they never explain the forces at play. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit. So it's important to understand that the basics of supply and demand obviously play a role in gas prices, right? So if the supply of oil is low, if the production of oil is low and the demand is high, which it has been lately as a result of things opening back up, people traveling more after the COVID pandemic and all that. I mean, we're still experiencing the pandemic, but you get what I mean. Things are opening up. Demand is up, but supply is low. Why is supply low? Well, remember during the pandemic in the early months, people just weren't really leaving their homes. They weren't traveling. And so there was an abundance of oil, abundance of gasoline available for people to, fuel their vehicles, airlines to fuel their planes and all of that. But there was incredibly low demand. And so the countries that produce the oil were hurt by that, especially if that's their number one export. And so then all of a sudden demand goes up. But here's the interesting part. So there are these countries that make up an organization known as OPEC, OPEC Plus as it's called today. And these are oil producing countries, right? And basically what they do is they work together as a cartel to determine how much oil they produce. And the reason why they do that is because they want to manipulate the market. And we're kind of seeing that right now. It's playing out right now. So just to give you some more context, if OPEC plus countries are unsatisfied with the price of oil, it is in their interest to cut the supply of oil so prices rise. A pledge by OPEC plus to cut supply causes an immediate spike in the price of oil. Over time, the price reverts back to a level usually lower when supply is not meaningfully cut or demand adjusts. Those are the basics, okay? Those are the basics. If you guys can remember in the very beginning of the pandemic, when demand for oil was at record lows, the Trump administration actually decided to purchase oil specifically to artificially inflate the value of it. And then the Trump administration decided to keep that oil in the US reserves, okay? So we have reserves of oil that the Trump administration had decided to purchase. And again, that is a part of this manipulation that I'm referring to here, right? We talk about free market. And is it really free market when you have all of these various factors at play that specifically intend to manipulate the actual value or the price of oil? It's not really a free market. I mean, come on. And I'm not saying that as in, oh, there's all this regulation in place to protect the consumer. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the manipulation is meant to specifically benefit the oil producers or the OPEC countries, or the countries included in OPEC. And that includes Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Mexico, Russia, Sudan, South Sudan. A lot of countries that produce oil are part of OPEC plus. Now, recently, OPEC plus countries had a conference, and one of the topics at hand was this pressure from the Biden administration to produce more oil, to provide more supply to meet the demand, right? That way oil prices, or I should say gas prices at the pump, are lowered. And he got kind of a negative reaction from these oil producing countries. So here is a quick video explaining a little bit of that and the manipulation that takes place.
The biggest takeaway from the press conference, as Prince Abdulaziz said, really nobody gets to tell OPEC plus what to do. The united front showed at that press conference. He rallied every minister, OPEC and OPEC plus ministers from, of course, Russia, UAE, but Azerbaijan, Nigeria, everybody was there saying, look, this was a collective decision. We are doing what we think is right for the market. Nobody gets to tell us what to do, even if that person sits in the White House.
Right, so they're gonna do what's best for the market. And for them, they wanna make up the money lost during the beginning of the pandemic when demand for oil was at record lows. This is what they're doing to ensure that they make up those lost profits. Again, it's a manipulative tactic. There's no question about it. They've agreed to increase oil production a little bit to help with prices a little bit. But guys, I also want you to take a step back and think about what that means. Is that what we want? Right? I mean, people are suffering, people are struggling with the prices. There's no question about it. But the United States should have been front and center in regard to investing in renewable energy and getting us off of this fossil fuel addiction, right? We're so reliant on oil, even at this late date. And we didn't need to be here. We didn't need to find ourselves in this position, but we do. So look, in a perfect world, we wouldn't be dependent on oil, but we are. And so now we're stuck in this insanely annoying cycle where all these countries that produce oil, all these countries that have a profit motive are very obviously, transparently, overtly manipulating the market. And that's translating to these high gas prices at the pump. That's what's taking place. Everyone wants to blame things on Biden. I love blaming Biden when Biden is responsible for doing the wrong thing. But this isn't really an issue pertaining specifically to the White House. This is a problem that we've had for a long time with OPEC making decisions, not based on what's best for people, but what's based or what's best for the profit motive that these oil producing countries have, UAE, Saudi Arabia, what have you.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.